Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bedpost Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Erin Vim. Here at the podcast, I like to invite guests and performers from my stage show Bedpost that I do here in Toronto and beyond into the studio to have a more in-depth conversation with me. And this week, I have a super sultry, sexy guest, burlesque performer and scholar, Sultana.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I feel like we both had like some crazy shit happen to us like in the past few hours.
Yeah. It's been such a wild day. I feel like when the sun comes out, just like everything re-augments, but like because just people are out, right? So it's like, I don't know. There's just like so much like craziness has been happening. So,
but we're gonna have a nice grounded conversation here today.
Oh yes, please.
Are you ready to like chill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
She's like, what are you even saying to me? So you're a burlesque performer, a super well-known burlesque performer here in Toronto.
Wow. I mean, I'm glad to know that, like because I'm still fairly new. So I mean, not super new anymore. Certainly the point comes when you stop considering yourself like a fresh face or something. And so we're not there anymore, but like it's nice to know that like I've been
established,
and that I've made a mark that people think is like impactful or interesting.
Oh man, for sure you have. And also with that though, you are studying your PhD. Mm-hmm. When you told me this, I was like, you can do that. You said, I'm studying my PhD and my dissertation is on burlesque and eroticism. I was like, what now?
Well, it's actually on burlesque and exoticism and exotica.
Yes.
So it's a shifting project. Like I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things about it because I'm still in the early half of my PhD.
Yeah.
But basically I study through a drama, theater, and performance studies department.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other people who do what I do too to different capacities. Another performer named Loretta Jean she's a nerdlesque performer.
Yes,
super popular. Sure. Yeah, she's a cool chick, and she's also writing her doctorate at the same place I am.
Very cool.
And she writes about nerdlesque specifically.
Wow.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
So it's a whole culture.
It's a whole thing you can do.
Yeah, for real. I'm probably going to be going to a conference in November, I believe. It's next fall, and there's a whole panel at that conference just about burlesque and ethics research. So like very cool stuff. Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah.
So do you know, I suppose you know a lot about like the history of burlesque and yeah you're like
I really do. It's one of those things where it's so exciting to talk about, but it's also like, as much as I know where to start, it's kind of like where to contain it. But yeah, like I know like burlesque is a really old form. Like people contest where it starts, but I mean, there's arguments that say that it goes back as far as ancient Greece. A more popular sort of like starting point for what we think of maybe as like burlesque proper is when a troupe called Lydia Thompson and the British Blondes, who were from England, came to the States to perform in 1868. So that's like super old. Yeah. And burlesque plays at the time were super different than like the strip shows that we can think of today. They were more like a kind of like a pantomime, like a dirty kind of adult pantomime.
Okay, so by even pantomime, like is that like clownish?
True. Yeah. I should explain further. Yeah. So it's like ornate set, something much more like a play. Yes. Really farcical. Yeah. There's sort of stock characters. Yeah. But it was really just like, a little bit pervy.
But a little dirty.
Yeah. And I mean, and also like what was interesting about Lydia Thompson and the British Blondes was how disturbing they were for people in the Victorian era. Because there was a tradition of actresses playing what we would call like breeches or breeches roles. So there'd be women in like, pants and stuff like that.
Women wearing pants.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Breeches. Yeah.
But at the time, like that was like to wear pants was to show your body. So it was like a really sort of shocking sexual display.
Interesting.
And Lydia Thompson and the Blondes took that even further because on top of playing these breeches roles, they were also kind of like gender bending, which was super radical for the time.
Yes.
So they would wear these breeches or breeches, but they would also be like corseted with their bosom kind of showing in the outfit, or they would be wearing like other things that would simultaneously be showing their feminine form while playing really masculine parts. Yeah. So it's interesting. Like from the very beginning, drag has been a really big element of burlesque.
Yeah, because they are closely related. Totally, when you think about it. Like for me, when I kind of think of what burlesque is, I'm a burlesque performer as well. Yeah. I kind of think of it as if I'm in female drag. Like I'm like a bio queen. Like I'm amplifying my own femininity to a point of like a drag level. Like because it's so pushed, you know, just like, well, I mean, there are 1,000 different types of drag, you know, nowadays, but a lot of types of drag are amplifying femininity, you know. So to me, I can totally see parallels between the two.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I think a lot of contemporary bio queens, like, a lot of them have started in burlesque or have worked through burlesque, like burlesque proper or whatever, like, because I think at a certain point in time, there maybe just wasn't the same kind of language. Like feminine drag for a while felt very exclusive. Like the really like the dominant narrative was that it was, you know, like cis men who would dress up in this like effeminate kind of garb, and that if you were a woman, you just couldn't really do it or pull it off.
Yeah.
And so burlesque was a space where that was really invited. But some people, like, I mean, I think of like local performer Dottie Dangerfield is a great example of someone who started in burlesque, but really, I mean, all along, really kind of just wanted to be a drag queen.
Has been doing drag. A biological female doing drag.
Yeah.
Female drag.
For sure. And I think a lot of burlesque informs Dottie's aesthetic still, that she is, you know, continuously raunchy, that she is, I mean, she still does like sort of strip numbers. She still like hones that kind of like very burlesque, high effeminate camp that we see in a lot of like the early sort of 90s neo-burlesque figures. But she also is kind of like rocking and doing her own thing and lip singing, and is like working a lot in like the, you know, the kind of like West End drag community. So I think what she's done is fabulous. And she and I started like realistically kind of around the same time. I think she was maybe a year out longer than I was.
Yeah, that reminds me, actually, it's so funny. I like for my birthday and things like that, I try to like get people that like aren't totally in like the sexuality burlesque or, you know, sex club kind of, or sex educator sphere. I get my friends that are kind of outside of that, and I kind of like pull them in and like invite them to an event or something just to be like, here's my world. So I feel like maybe 5 years ago, I just took a group of friends to Sinful Sundays at Cherry Cola's here in Toronto, which is a pretty awesome burlesque venue. And for the first time, a lot of people saw burlesque. And my friend, who is actually episode 1 of my podcast, Keelan Fiorello, he when he saw it, he's a gay dude. When he saw it, he's like, oh, I get it. It's drag, but for straight people.
Yeah, kind of. Not exactly, but like...
like, through your lens. Yeah, I can see how you would think that. That's great.
Yeah.
An interesting analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's been cool about burlesque is that if you look at its history, it's always kind of been pretty subversively queer. Like, I think that's the thing that gets erased a lot. Yeah, well, I mean, because it's also like, why do we think it's not queer, right? Like, we think because where most people are seeing their first encounter with burlesque, or like realistically the neo-burlesque movement, they're seeing it through like really mainstream channels that forefront heteronormative feminine sexuality. So you're seeing like the, you know, the Christina Aguilera and Cher movie, or you're seeing what else is like a good example of something like
Dita?
That? Oh my god, or Dita. Who I mean, I'm not actually, I don't know if Dita is straight. I know that Dita,
but she presents that very like tiny waist, big boobs, alabaster
like
skin.
Beautiful skin.
Yeah,
like there's nothing
hyper
challenging.
feminine.
Yeah. But what I mean, but even someone like Dita Von Teese, you know, I retract saying that someone like Dita Von Teese isn't challenging, because I also think it's like where we're seeing Dita Von Teese now versus when she started. Like when Dita started, vintage wear was still considered like hyper fetish. Like that wasn't like a normal thing to do. And she was doing like a lot of fetish. Like Dita Von Teese started as a porn star. Like, I don't know why people always like,
we forget that.
Yeah, exactly. And that Dita and Catherine Delish, who's a huge name who I think gets erased in a lot of people's consciousness, even though Catherine, I would argue, is really responsible for a lot of Dita's aesthetic and built so many of her costumes for so long.
Yeah, because Delish does like those gorgeous
like $1,000
robes.
robes.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I've looked at the prices
I know.
I'm like, how much are these exactly? And I'm like, oh, okay. But like ostrich feather, gorgeous robes, burlesque costumer.
Like amazing, like fur trim, like these like super, you can also get vegan ones too now, which is great. Yeah. But like, you know, like these super, super opulent. And those Vogue robes for her are like her like basic thing.
Yeah.
That's like her like, it's chill and I'm making this on like a Saturday afternoon kind of thing. But yeah, so Catherine and Dita at like an early Teaserama, which was an early burlesque show, did a really, really sort of like homoerotic, like, you know, dual strip scene that really shocked and offended a lot of the other burlesque performers who were there. Wow. Like people sort of forget that being a part. Like a lot of people were like, this isn't burlesque, or this is burlesque, or we're veering into pornography, or like, can we allow? So like, I don't know. I think Dita's actually like a lot more transgressive than a lot of people give her credit for. Although I think she's learned to make herself like a sort of marketing mogul and knows how to basically make money, which to a degree is simplifying to like the common, you know, mainstream denominator
of beauty,
yeah, and sales, and like, you know, a neoliberal, that's a big word time, you know, like this kind of common idea that you can, that's like individualist in nature, that you can make yourself your best you, that sort of acts as though everybody has the resources to like do it if they only tried. Like that's like,
okay,
she definitely, I think, plays into that and knows what she's doing. But I think she also makes space for a lot of really interesting things. And certainly in burlesque, we're really indebted to her.
Yeah. So what do you think? Okay, if we're talking about like the origins of burlesque and kind of the heart of what kind of burlesque is and where it got started, what do you think? What is the main difference between, say, burlesque and, say, stripping?
That's so hard, and such a hard question for people. It's a question where certain people in burlesque would be like, oh my gosh, I can't answer that. And also, and some strippers do too. And I've studied this a lot, and so I've never worked as a stripper, and I feel like it's important to own that, for reasons that are mostly that are really personal. But, you know, also intersect with like sort of the basics of what a stripping job entails, which is things like basically a strong ability for sales. It's a sales dominated field. Yeah, exactly. Like burlesque, like our compensation is not contingent on like how well we hustle in the crowd after. It's fully just like, you know, the product you're getting, you book it, you pay for it. Some shows, you know, require that you spend a little bit of time mingling, but really that's like up to you, and no one's like holding you fast to that.
Or you get like a tip on top of your wage or your salary. You get a tip based on you hustling. Like
exactly. But during the performance, right? Yeah.
Or like, I mean, even just on social media beforehand, like if you make posts and things like that, and the more people that attend the show, a lot of burlesque people here in Toronto anyways.
Like a promo thing.
Yeah, will get, based on the volume of people attending the show, they'll get an extra tip based on that. So that does kind of include an element of hustle that you will reap like actual money from.
Totally. Yeah.
But not nearly as much so as a stripper, you're saying.
No. Yeah. Well, like I think there's other things too, right? Like, I mean, like even just, I mean, money is for me the big difference, how much you make and also how much you spend. Like burlesque costumes are so expensive, are so, you know, like time consuming, and not to say the strippers' costumes aren't, but like that. But
you could wear a pair of pleasers, the same pair of pleasers for the next year,
exactly, until they break, basically, which they do all the time.
Which they do,
but like, or you know, you could if you are, say, like a feature dancer, right, or someone who would have like a really opulent costume,
right?
You spend a lot probably on that costume, but you certainly make it back and you use it a ton.
Yeah.
Whereas,
you know, so you're saying essentially strippers make more.
You just
spend less, make more.
I mean, typically, if you're a stripper, you're there because you want to see financial gains from doing that, right? Like,